In the quiet towns of Galilee and the hills of Judea, a carpenter's son steps into his divine calling. This isn't just any story, it's the account of Jesus Christ's ministry, a journey of healing, teaching, and sacrifice carefully recorded in the Gospels. As we explore this narrative together, we'll see how Jesus walked among people not as a distant king but as a servant, forever changing the course of human history. The story of Jesus' ministry begins at the Jordan River. Here, Jesus is baptized by John and something extraordinary happens. The Spirit of God descends upon him like a dove. This moment echoes back to the creation story where the Spirit hovers over the waters. Jesus is then led into the wilderness for 40 days of fasting and temptation. Just as Israel wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, Jesus faces 40 days of testing. But where Israel failed, Jesus succeeds. He emerges victorious, quoting scripture to defeat the adversary. This period prepares Jesus for the ministry ahead, and he returns to Galilee in the power of the Spirit. As Jesus begins to teach, people quickly realize that his words carry an authority unlike anything they've heard before. He doesn't simply quote other rabbis or rely on human wisdom. Instead, he speaks truth directly, often beginning with the phrase, "You have heard it said, but I tell you." This method of teaching astonishes his listeners and draws large crowds wherever he goes. One of the most famous examples of Jesus' teaching is the Sermon on the Mount. Here he turns conventional wisdom on its head. He blesses the poor in spirit, calls peacemakers the children of God, and instructs his followers to love their enemies. These radical teachings challenge the status quo and present a new way of understanding God's kingdom. Jesus isn't just interpreting the law, he's fulfilling it and showing its true intent. Jesus' ministry isn't just about words, it's also about action. Throughout the Gospels, we see him performing miracles that demonstrate his divine power and deep compassion. He reaches out and touches a leper, healing him instantly. He opens the eyes of the blind, allowing them to see for the first time. He even raises the dead, bringing hope in the midst of grief. When Jesus calms a storm on the sea, he's not just showing control over nature, he's demonstrating his authority over the chaos and turmoil in our lives. These miracles are fulfilling ancient prophecies about the Messiah, showing that Jesus is indeed the long-awaited one. As Jesus' ministry grows, he begins to call disciples to follow him. "Follow me," he says, and amazingly, they leave everything behind to do just that. His choices are surprising. He doesn't select the religious elite or the politically powerful. This diverse group of 12 becomes Jesus' closest followers. In choosing 12, Jesus is symbolically reconstituting the 12 tribes of Israel, showing that he's forming a new covenant people. As Jesus' popularity grows, he increasingly comes into conflict with the religious leaders of his day. One of the most dramatic moments of confrontation comes when Jesus cleanses the temple. He overturns the tables of the money changers and drives out those who have turned his Father's house into a den of robbers. But to the humble and repentant, he offers grace and forgiveness. Jesus is standing in their tradition, calling people back to true worship of God. In the Garden of Gethsemane, we see Jesus wrestling in prayer, saying, "Not my will, but yours be done." Jesus' ministry ultimately leads him to the cross, but this isn't a tragic end, it's the fulfillment of his mission. But the story doesn't end at the cross. On the third day, Jesus rises from the dead, conquering death itself. His resurrection validates everything he taught and did during his ministry. The ministry of Jesus continues through his followers, inviting all people to follow him. The story of Jesus' ministry isn't just history, it's an invitation to join in God's ongoing work in the world. How will we respond?